All right, welcome to day 2 of adding integers. Yesterday, or the previous video, we talked about how to add integers that had the same sign, so they were all positives or they were all negatives. Today we're going to talk about how to add integers if they are different signs, if one is a positive and if one is a negative. The first thing that we need to talk about are zero pairs. So I want you to think about our soup yesterday. If you think about that soup, the hot soup that the chefs were making, if I had a bowl of soup and I added one hot cube, my soup would be 1 degree hotter. And then if I added one cold cube, the cold cube would cancel out the hot cube. So my soup temperature would be the same. We call that a zero pair. A zero pair are numbers that cancel each other out and equal 0. They're opposites. So an example, 1 positive and 1 negative would equal 0. 4 positives and 4 negatives equal 0. Think about a debt. If you have $7 but you owe $7 to someone and you give it to them, you give your $7 away, you end up with $0. It's a zero pair at the end. Zero pairs are very important when we talk about adding integers with different signs. So let's look at an example here. We're a step ahead of ourselves with these x's, so I'm going to see if I can just slide them down. I don't know if I can. I sure can. So I'm going to slide these down really quick so we can talk about what's going on here. This top row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Has 7 positives representing this positive 7 right here. The bottom row has 1, 2, 3 negatives. 3 negatives represented right there. We just talked about a zero pair, how 1 positive and 1 negative cancel each other out to make 0. So these cancel each other out, or they're additive inverses. Their zero pairs make it a 0. This additive inverse makes a 0. These make zeros. All of these turn into 0 pairs. So what's left over? Well, once these cancel each other out or they turn into zeros, I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 positives. I could represent that on the number line. If I start at 0, I need to add positive 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now I need to add in a negative 3. But remember that negative goes in the opposite direction. Negative goes left. 1, 2, 3. So my answer would be negative 4. Either visual works. One works better for some than others. So whatever visual works for you, think about walking on a number line or think about having the numbers listed out. So again, let's look at this. I'll remove these so we can just verify what we have in our problem. First we have a negative 5. 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We also have 2 positives. 1, 2 that we added in. Then I know that each positive and a negative, they're going to have their zero pair. They turn into 0. One's the additive inverse of the other. And so whatever remains is my answer. And in this case, I have 3 negatives that remain, which is why my answer is negative 3. So when I look at this as a negative 5 plus a positive 2, my answer was negative 3 when I was done. Go ahead and hit pause and see if you can solve this problem. Thank you. I'm hoping you were successful. Let's see. I'm going to start by drawing out my plus signs. I have 4 positives. I have 6 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to cross out my 0 pairs. And I see that I have 2 negatives left over, so my answer is negative 2. If I was doing this problem on the number line, I would start at 0 and go up to a positive 4 because I needed to add 4. And now I'm adding in a negative 6, but because it's negative, I have to go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. My final answer is -2. Once again, hit pause, come back, and see if you got it. All right, I'm not going to keep showing you the signs for all the problems. I'm hoping at some point you might be able to notice something. In this case, I noticed that the 5 is going to have more of its sign, in this case happens to be negative, than the positive signs of 3. I know that 5 is 2 more than 3, and 5 is part of the negative team, the negative number. So it has 2 negatives. Once again, on a number line, I'd go up to the positive 3, 1, 2, 3. And since I'm adding in a negative, I have to turn around and go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can also think about the soup. If I had that cauldron here, oh, I'm not the best drawer. Looks more like a pitcher of water. All right, so here's our cauldron. And I have 3 hot cubes that I placed in here. And then I put in 5 cold cubes. Each hot cube and cold cube would cancel each other out. They would make it the same temperature. Once again, leaving me with hot cubes because I put in more hot cubes than I did cold cubes. Paused it, I hope. All right, and now you came back. We had 5 negatives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 9 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to count to make sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I know I have my 0 pairs because a hot cube and a cold cube, or my 0 pairs, or each one of these is an additive inverse. They're going to turn it into 0 so it doesn't affect each other. And at the end, I'm left with 4 hot cubes. 4 hot cubes, positive 4. 4 positives. Again, on my number line, I could say I'm starting at -5, which is down here. Then I'm adding in 9 positive. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 positives. Look at that. Brought me to the number 4. Go ahead and hit pause. Come back. The answer in this is +2. I hope you did well. All right, now we have 3 of these. I want you to give this one a shot before you hear me explain it. Hit pause, work through it, come back and see if you got it. Give yourself a pat on the back if you did. In this case, I'm just going to work with my numbers as I go through. And we have the associative property that allows us to kind of move things around, and we can add it in whatever order we want as long as we recognize the signs. I don't like looking at 2 negative signs, so I'm going to chunk these together right away. This says that I have 5 negatives. This says that I have 3 negatives. This says that I have 2 positives. 5 negatives and 3 negatives, they're going to make a total of 8 negatives. And then I still have my 2 positives here. So I have my 2 positives, those grouped together to make 8 negatives. Now if I was to rewrite that, I would have 2 positives and 8 negatives. And a positive and a negative, they're going to make their 0 pairs. They're going to cancel each other out. And all in all, at the end of the day, I'm left over with -6. Hopefully you got that as an answer, but maybe you got it a different way. You went about it differently. So let me show you a second way to do that. Just no matter what way you took, it's okay. Many of you may have just started with a +2 and the -5. You notice that these were 0 pairs and they canceled out. And in the end, I was left with a -3. Then I still have over here plus a -3. So now I have 3 negatives and 3 negatives, which make a -6. You may have also worked from the number line. Working from the number line, I'd start at 2. Start at 0, go to 2. Go to -5, so I have to go back 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I still have this other digit here to go back 3 more. 1, 2, 3. And it brought me to the answer of -6. Go ahead, try this one on your own really quick. Hit pause when you come back. I hope you got an answer of -5. Here we have to plug in some values. Again, to evaluate, I'm going to replace 5 with this A. I'm going to replace -2 with this B. I notice that there are more positive values than negative values, so my answer is going to be positive, and that there are 3 more. If I count it out or list it out, my 5 values here and my 2 values here, my 0 pairs would cancel out. 1 0 pair, 2 0 pair, and I'd be left with a +3. Bring this down for our next problem. All right, go ahead, hit pause, try this one for yourself, and then come back and I will finish it for you. All right, so I'm going to replace each one of these variables with the intended digit, the intended value. Notice how I kept the plus signs here and the negative signs, the negative values came with each number. Again, using the associative property, if I wanted to, I can combine this 7 and this 2 right away. But just for learning's sake, I'm going to start at the beginning, just for some of you who might be confused. I have 2 negatives here, 4 positives here. I know they make 0 pairs, so I'm going to cross off a negative and cross off a positive. Cross off a negative, cross off a positive, because they make my 0 pairs. They neutralize the charge. I still have positive and negatives here, so I'm going to cancel some of those out. And when I'm done, I notice that I still have 5 negative values left over. So what would have happened if I took this 7 and the 2 and put them together right away? Well, I would have had -9 and a +4. And together, a +4 and a -9 would equal -5. All right, try all 3 of these, come back to get the answer. Hopefully you were successful on those. We have some story problems here. We have Sarah. Sarah is still babysitting. Was she babysitting yesterday? I don't remember. But Sarah is still babysitting, and last week she earned $25. She went to the movie on Saturday and, whoops, bought, some of the words came out here, $5 popcorn and $7 for a movie ticket. How much money does she have left? So we know that she started with 25. That's going to be a +25. That's how much money she started with. We know that she spent some money. She spent $5 on popcorn and spent $7 on a movie. How much money does she have left? So if I started with $25, that's 25 positives. I'm going to take away 5 of those dollars. That leaves me with 20. Now I have 20 minus 7. $20 minus 7 is 13. I have $13 left over. I could represent this as an addition problem of a -5 and a -7, because that would represent spending money. But at the end of the day, word problems, kind of common sense, you skip that. You skip that writing it that way. Tony went shopping over the weekend and bought shoes for $39. All right, so what happened? He bought some shoes. That means he spent his money. He spent $39. He doesn't have it anymore. He returned a shirt. If you go to the store and you return a shirt, what happens? They give you back, they add in a positive $18 to the money you have. He started with 50. Okay, now I need to go back to the beginning. In order for him to buy this, he had money to start with. Then he spent 39. Now he has 18. How much money does he have now? Well, whatever he has left over, right? So I know that he had $50 and he spent 39. 39 is an ugly number for me, so I'm going to say he spent 40, which gives me 10. And then I'm going to add one more on for the 11, as for what he has left over. It was just an easier way to do some math. Then I'm going to add on the $18 that he got in return for the shirt. And 11 and 18 make 29. All right, in summary, what do we have to know? First of all, you have to look at a few things. You need to look at the signs. And you need to make sure that they are adding two numbers. Well, two or more integers. Okay, look at the signs when you're adding two or more integers. You can try to group all of the same signs together, or you can leave them separate. However, you need to pay attention to which sign value has the most in it for quantity, has the highest value. Remember that if I have a -7 and I'm adding a +2, I want to pay attention to the value, the sign of that one that has the highest absolute value. So in this case, 7 would be a higher absolute value. It has a sign of negative. And in between them, the difference is 5. I'm struggling a little bit because each person is going to recognize this differently, and I don't want to confuse everyone. Some people will say, oh, I'm just going to subtract and take the sign. Some people are still thinking about how to cross off cubes. But at the end, remember that you just want to be careful when you're adding two or more integers, that you want to pay attention to the signs. Don't miss out on those. Imagine plus signs or cubes and use your 0 pairs. 0 pairs are where you have one positive and one negative, and they total 0. I should say their sum is 0. And that will help you eliminate some of your choices in the numbers when you're adding them together. All right, I feel like that was an awkward ending, and I apologize for that summary, but I don't want to confuse anyone by giving specific rules depending on how you learned it in class. Some of you are just naturally seeing how this works. If not, we'll have some practice worksheets available. I will try to get them on a website here for you, and I'll also include a answer sheet so you have that available to you. All right, good luck practicing, and we'll see you in class tomorrow. Or next week if it's the weekend. Have a good one.